So there I was, standing in my apartment, about to blow out the candles on my birthday cake. 30 years old, the big 3-0. I had this image in my head, a cozy night with some close friends, easy laughs, maybe a bit of Jones's jazz playlist humming softly in the background, and finally, a chill way to mark the milestone. All low-key, all good vibes. But then, just as I was about to make my wish and blow, the air in the room shifted, like when the volume drops suddenly and you realize someone new just walked into the room. And yep, there he was. This guy I hadn't seen or thought about in years, just strolling in like he owned the place. The music stuttered, the chatter faded, and suddenly all eyes swung to the door. I glanced over at Jamie, my best friend and partner in party crime, and saw his eyebrows shoot up in surprise. Even Mark, my cousin and usually the life of any gathering, was caught mid-cheer, his smile faltering. The room went quiet enough that I could hear the faint hum of the fridge. All of a sudden, my birthday wasn't feeling so low-key anymore. "Hey," the guy said, Derek smiling way too casually. Not like a surprise happy birthday smile, more like a I just crashed your party and this is exactly where I want to be grin. My mind went into overdrive. Who invited him? Seriously, who even had his number anymore? How did he find out? And why now? I mean, Derek and I had been in the same circle back in high school, but it wasn't exactly the warm and fuzzy kind of friendship you'd expect. More like a tense nod across the hallways, some awkward gym class interactions, and a whole heap of unspoken stuff I didn't really want to reopen. I was about to ask Jamie what the heck was happening when Derek started weaving through the crowd, shaking hands like he'd been invited years in advance. The vibe changed fast. I could see Jamie trying to exchange a quick glance with Mark, as if telepathically saying, "Should we stop him? Invite him to leave?" But nobody was moving. And just like that, my birthday party took a turn I wasn't ready for, and I had no idea if it was going to be a detour or a full-on derailment. So here's the thing about birthdays, especially when you hit that big 3-0 mark. I had this mix of wanting to keep it low-key but also not looking like a total recluse. I mean, nobody throws a party for just themselves, right? Jamie was my go-to guy for pretty much everything. He's the type who, whenever you say party, he's already working on a playlist in his head. He somehow manages to be the ringleader without making it feel like a circus. And then there's Mark, my cousin legendary for turning any gathering into a full-on event. The guy's got jokes, stories, and this magnetic energy that lifts everyone's spirits. Honestly, he kind of sets the tone for good times. I told them both weeks ahead that I just wanted something chill. No wild surprises, no big crowds, just close friends, good music, some pizza, and a cake that didn't burst into flames like a campfire. Jamie took on the DJ role, Mark offered to handle snacks and drinks, and I just tried to brace myself for the inevitable, welcome to your 30s jokes. But then, of course, came Derek. Now, Derek was one of those people you don't really see in the thank you for coming notes on Facebook invites, mainly because you'd never think to invite him in the first place. Back in high school, he was more of a shadow in the hallways than a friend. We had a couple of classes together, shared a few awkward moments, but mostly we stayed in separate orbits. He was the guy who could turn a simple gym class into a lesson in tense silences. You know the type. So when I saw him threading his way through my friends like he belonged, I felt that creeping unease bubble up again. I mean, was this some kind of blast from the past mission? Because if it was about as welcome as a surprise math quiz. Jamie, ever the peacemaker, walked over to me with this half smile that said, what now? Mark, meanwhile, was already sizing Derek up, like trying to figure out if this was a prank or if he should start sharpening his verbal knives. The weird thing was, Derek wasn't just lurking by the snack table or hovering near the door. No, he grabbed a beer, plopped down on the couch like it was his personal throne, and made himself at home without so much as a, "Hey, thanks for the invite," which, well, he didn't have. The room had started off with that warm buzz of laughter and casual storytelling. You know, the usual catching up phase where Jamie's jokes get loud enough that people start to forget their weekday troubles. But now, with Derek settling in, it felt more like, I don't know, a slow leak on an otherwise smooth tire. That subtle hiss you ignore until suddenly you're wobbling down the road. Every time I caught Derek's eye, he was smirking like he knew some inside joke I wasn't in on. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was just one guy trying to crash a party. But then he started shifting conversations towards stuff that made me uncomfortable. Casual digs about my job, pointed questions about friends I barely saw anymore, that sort of thing. And of course Mark and Jamie noticed too, exchanging looks that screamed, "This is getting weird." I found myself stuck in this awkward dance keeping the party afloat while trying to figure out if Derek was planning to leave anytime soon or if I should just start clearing the room myself. It was a strange mix of nostalgia and irritation. There's something about people from your past showing up unannounced that digs up all these memories you didn't realize were so inconvenient. And the worst part? I wasn't even sure if I wanted to dig through all that tonight. Jamie caught my eye again and whispered something about maybe taking Derek aside later. Mark nodded, already halfway into a, hey, maybe we should head out soon mode. Meanwhile, Derek was laughing a little too loud at a joke I didn't hear and elbowing some poor guy who was just trying to enjoy his drink. I felt like my 30th birthday was turning into some weird episode of a high school reunion TV special, except, minus the charm. And just when I thought things couldn't get more awkward, Derek's grin widened as if he was about to drop a line that would shake the whole room. The question was, what kind of surprise did he have in store? The thing about Derek was, once he got going, there was no stopping him. Suddenly, he was the center of attention, but not in the fun, charismatic way you might hope for. No, he was like that one ping-pong ball that bounces erratically across the table, knocking over everything in its path. We were all settled into the easy rhythm of the party when Derek started pulling everyone into these one-sided conversations, reminiscing about high school moments, with a twist that made them feel more like roast sessions than nostalgia trips. I caught him cornering Jamie, bringing up that time in sophomore year when Jamie totally bombed that math test. Jamie, being the good sport he is, laughed it off, but I could see the edge in his eyes. Then he came over to me, that ridiculous smile stretched too wide, and said something like, "Still stuck in the same cubicle, huh? Guess some things never change. I mean, ouch, right?" As if my job was some sort of lifelong sentence and my chill 30s plan was this sad consolation prize. At first, I tried to laugh it off, make a joke to cool the heat. "Yeah, man, somebody's got to keep the economy going," I said, hoping to get a chuckle or at least deflect his jab. But Derek wasn't having it. Instead, he leaned in like he was handing me a loaded secret and said, "Remember when you totally flaked on Mark's birthday party in senior year?" Don't think I forgot. The room kind of froze. I felt eyes dart toward me, then flick to Mark, who just stiffened in place. Jamie's grin faded. It was the kind of thing nobody mentions unless they want to stir the pot, and I was pretty sure Derek was a one-man hurricane with the express purpose of stirring just that. I swallowed hard because, well, it was true. I had bailed on that party. Not my proudest moment, but it was high school, some dumb drama, nothing that should have been dragged up at my 30th birthday party of all nights. People started shifting uncomfortably, some trying to change the subject, others clearly waiting to see how I'd react. Mark, usually the animated one, sat quiet like he was processing whether he should jump in or just let this blow over. Jamie came over and clapped a hand on my shoulder, whispering, "You good?" But Derek was already moving on, like he just tossed a grenade and was watching it explode. He was now pulling out bizarre little jabs at my friends, calling one a corporate zombies and telling another he forgot what fun was. The laughter that had filled my apartment only an hour ago had drained away, replaced with this thick, awkward silence that felt bigger than the space in the room. I was stuck. Part of me wanted to say, "Derek, why the hell are you here? What do you want?" But another part was just trying to hold the party together, keep this from turning into a full disaster. Jamie tried a few quick jokes, light stuff to break the tension, but Derek just smirked and talked over him, as if daring us to rescue the mood. At some point, I realized the party had split. People were clustering into little islands, some sticking with Derek out of curiosity or maybe politeness, others retreating with Mark and Jamie whispering about what we should even do next. The air was heavy with uncertainty. I looked around and caught Mark's eye, who just shrugged, clearly not knowing whether to laugh, yell, or quietly slip out the door. And me? Well, I felt the weight of every eye in the room and the sudden, undeniable need to take this head on. I squared my shoulders and took a steadying breath, then walked right up to Derek. "All right, Derek," I said, voice steady, but with an edge I didn't quite feel. "What's this really about?" Derek looked up at me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face like he hadn't expected me to actually confront him. For a moment, he just stared, half amusement, half something I couldn't quite place before he leaned back, arms stretching out along the back of the couch. "You want honesty? Fine," he said, voice low but clear enough for others nearby to catch on. "Back in high school, things weren't exactly great between us, and yeah, I acted like a jerk here and there too. Maybe I didn't know how to deal with some stuff, felt like I was always on the outside looking in." There was a pause, and I could see Jamie and Mark exchanging a glance, sensing this was a different side of Derek I hadn't seen yet. He took a shaky breath and continued, "After school, I kinda fell apart for a bit. Oh, lost a good job, some friends, got tangled in some rough patches. Not that it's an excuse for how I showed up tonight, trolling your party like some angry ghost. I just guess I figured if I could rattle you, maybe I'd feel less invisible." It hit me like a punch I hadn't seen coming. Here was this guy who had played the role of antagonist all night but was actually wrestling his own demons. Suddenly, his snarky remarks weren't just cheap shots. They were cracks in a mask I'd never bothered to see beneath. I shifted, realizing the room had quieted almost completely, everyone waiting to see what I'd do with this unexpected revelation. I took a breath and said, "I get that, Derek. High school wasn't perfect for anyone, really. And maybe I wasn't the easiest guy to be around either. The words felt strange but honest. I won't pretend it's all cool that you just crashed this party and started steamrolling through old wounds. But I also know life's messy, and sometimes we all need to be seen, warts and all. Jamie stepped up next, nodding with a grin that was more about relief than amusement. And hey, if anyone knows about messy, it's us. This party's never been about perfection, it's about real people, real stories. Mark cracked a smile, raising his beer. Sounds like we could use a bit more realness and maybe a little less mystery guest drama. A few laughs broke out, lighter this time, as if the room collectively exhaled. Derek even managed a small, self-deprecating chuckle. We all settled back into the couches and chairs, the tension softening into something warmer, genuine. Derek started sharing a bit about his recent struggles. A job change, a rough breakup, trying to get his life back on track. It wasn't bragging or oversharing, it was real talk, the kind that feels rare at parties but somehow perfect here. As the night wound down, the awkward edges faded. People were more open, conversations flowed easier, and the party somehow found its rhythm again. Jamie even slipped in a few jokes at Derek's expense, good-natured this time, and Mark revived the snack table with a fresh round of wings. When the music hummed low again and the laughter had settled into comfortable hums, I caught Derek's eye one last time. "Thanks for showing up," I said, meaning it beyond the usual birthday politeness. He nodded, a little softer now. "Thanks for not shutting me out. I don't know what comes next with Derek. Maybe this is the start of some weird new chapter, or maybe it's just a complicated memory stitched into the story of my 30s. Either way, tonight reminded me that birthdays and friendships are never as neat as we hope. They're messy, full of surprises, and, sometimes, exactly what we need even when we don't know it yet.